Let me tell you something. God doesn't move on your time. He doesn't check your watch. He doesn't ask for permission, and he sure doesn't wait for you to feel ready. When God moves, he moves suddenly. One moment you're struggling, confused, wondering how you'll make it. The next, boom. Your life shifts in ways you never saw coming. But here's the thing. When God moves suddenly, he always leaves signs. The question is, are you paying attention? Let me tell you something. God doesn't move on your time. He doesn't check your watch. He doesn't ask for permission, and he sure doesn't wait for you to feel ready. When God moves, he moves suddenly. One moment you're struggling, confused, wondering how you'll make it. The next, boom! Your life shifts in ways you never saw coming. But here's the thing. When God moves suddenly, he always leaves signs. The question is, are you paying attention? See, a lot of us are praying for change. We're asking for breakthrough. We're believing for doors to open, for struggles to end, for something to shift. But what we don't always realize is that when God starts moving, it won't always look the way we expected. Sometimes, the very thing we see as a setback is actually a setup. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection. And sometimes the chaos you're facing is just God clearing the path for something greater. When God moves suddenly, doors that have been locked for years will swing wide open, not by your strength, not by your hustle, but by his divine power. The opportunity you've been waiting for, the breakthrough you've been praying on, the answer that's been delayed, it will come, and it will come fast. But here's what you need to understand. When that door opens, you have to be ready to walk through it. Too many people miss their blessing because they hesitate, they doubt, they overthink. But when God moves suddenly, hesitation will cost you. You have to step boldly into what he's calling you to do. And let me tell you something else. When God moves, not everyone can come with you. There are people in your life right now who were only meant to be part of this season, not the next one. And when God shifts you, some folks will start falling away. They'll stop calling, they'll stop supporting, they'll walk away. And that's okay, because when God moves, he removes. He clears out the distractions. He makes room for the people who will help you, not hinder you. Some relationships were never meant to last forever, and when you try to hold on to what God is trying to let go, you block your own blessing. You might be going through a season of resistance right now, where everything feels like a battle. Let me tell you, the battle is a sign that the breakthrough is near. The enemy does not attack what isn't valuable. If you feel like you're under attack, it's because there is something great on the other side of this storm. But listen to me, storms don't last forever. You may not see the finish line yet, but you're closer than you think. When God moves, he will turn the very thing that was meant to destroy you into the thing that elevates you. That hardship, that loss, that disappointment, it will become your testimony. And in the middle of all that chaos, you will feel something that doesn't even make sense. Peace. A peace so strong, so deep, that even when things around you seem to be falling apart, you'll know in your heart that you are exactly where you need to be. That peace is proof that God is in control. See, when God moves, he doesn't just shift your circumstances, he shifts you. So when God moves, he doesn't just shift your circumstances, he shifts you. He strengthens you, he refines you, he prepares you for the next level. And when you reach that level, when you look back on everything you've been through, you'll see the hand of God in every detail. And when that peace settles in, something else starts to happen. You begin to see divine connections forming. People will start entering your life who are aligned with your purpose. People who will speak life into you, encourage you, push you higher. You won't have to force these connections. They will come effortlessly, and you will know they were sent by God, because when God moves, he doesn't just give you blessings, he gives you people. The right people. The ones who will help carry the vision forward. Not only that, but chains that have held you back for years will start to break. Cycles of fear, addiction, doubt, and insecurity will begin to crumble. Things that once controlled you will lose their grip. because when God moves suddenly, he brings deliverance. He frees you from what has kept you bound, and when you step into that freedom, you won't even recognize the old version of yourself. But let me be real with you. Before that breakthrough comes, your faith will be tested. God will ask you to trust him when nothing makes sense. He will ask you to believe when you have every reason to doubt. But if you can hold on, if you can walk by faith and not by sight, you will see him show up in ways you never imagined. Because when God moves suddenly, he brings favor. Unexpected doors will open. Financial blessings will come out of nowhere. Healing will happen. Relationships will be restored. Opportunities will appear that you never even prayed for. And something even greater will happen. You will feel a new fire inside of you, a fresh passion, a new drive, a hunger to step fully into your purpose. Things that once drained you won't even bother you anymore. You'll have clarity, vision, and a determination that can't be shaken. Because when God moves, he doesn't just change your circumstances, he changes you. And when it's all said and done, when you look back at the shift that took place, you will know without a doubt that only God could have done it. You won't be able to explain it any other way. The connections, the timing, the way it all came together, it will be undeniable that God's hand was on your life the entire time. So I'll ask you again, are you paying attention? Because when God moves suddenly, there's no time to second guess. There's no time to stay stuck in old patterns, old fears, old mindsets. When he moves, you move. When he opens the door, you walk through it. When he calls you higher, you rise. Because what's waiting for you on the other side? It's greater than anything you've ever imagined. Let me tell you something. God doesn't move on your time. He doesn't check your watch. He doesn't ask for permission, and he sure doesn't wait for you to feel ready. When God moves, he moves suddenly. One moment, you're struggling, confused, wondering how you're going to make it. The next, boom, your life shifts in ways you never saw coming. When God moves, he doesn't need your approval, your permission, or your understanding. He moves in his perfect time, and when he does, things change fast. But here's the question. Are you paying attention? Because when God moves, he always leaves signs. The problem is too many of us are so distracted, so focused on our own plans, that we miss what God is doing right in front of us. We're looking for a burning bush when God is speaking in a whisper. We're expecting fireworks when God is moving through small divine moments. When God moves suddenly, he's not asking if you're ready. He's asking if you trust him enough to follow. You see, a lot of people pray for change, but when change comes, they panic. They pray for doors to open, but when the door swings wide, they hesitate. Why? Because sudden moves require sudden faith. When God moves, you don't have time to overthink, to analyze, to sit in fear. You have to be ready to move with him. There are things you've been praying for, things you've been believing for, and the truth is, God has already set it in motion. But if you're not paying attention, if you're still clinging to what's comfortable, you might miss it. And let me tell you something. When God moves suddenly, not everyone can go with you. When God shifts you into a new season, some people will leave. Some will walk away. Some will stop supporting you. And you have to be okay with that. Because when God moves, he removes. He takes away what no longer serves you. He clears out the distractions. He cuts ties with relationships that were never meant to last. The mistake so many of us make is trying to hold on to people that God is trying to let go. We try to force old connections into a new season, but God is saying, I'm doing something new. Let them go. When God moves, resistance will come, because before the blessing, there is always a battle. Some of you are wondering why life feels so hard right now, why everything seems to be pushing against you. Let me tell you why. Because the enemy sees what's coming. The enemy knows that God is shifting something in your life, and he's trying to stop you before you get there. But here's what you need to know. Storms don't last forever. The pressure you feel right now is proof that something is about to break. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if there wasn't something powerful on the other side. And in the middle of all this, something supernatural happens. You will feel peace. A peace that doesn't even make sense. A peace that settles in your soul even when everything around you is chaotic. That's how you know God is in control. That's how you know God is in control. That's how you know He's moving. Because when God moves suddenly, He doesn't just change your circumstances, He changes you. He strengthens you, He refines you, He prepares you for what's coming next. And when the dust settles, when you look back, you will see His hand in every detail. You'll also notice something else. Divine connections will start appearing. People will come into your life who are meant to help you, guide you, support you. When God moves, He doesn't just open doors. He sends the right people to walk through them with you. Some of you have been feeling alone, like you have to do this on your own. But let me tell you, when God shifts things, He will send people who align with your destiny. People who will pour into you, encourage you, push you higher. You won't have to force these relationships. They will happen naturally, and you will know they were sent by God. When God moves suddenly, chains start breaking. Cycles that have kept you stuck for years will be broken. Addictions, fears, doubts, insecurities, things that once held you back will begin to fall away. You'll wake up one day and realize that what used to control you no longer has power over you. Because when God moves, He doesn't just bless you, He delivers you. But before the breakthrough, before the elevation, your faith will be tested. God will ask you to trust Him in moments when nothing makes sense. He will ask you to believe when everything around you says it's impossible. That's the moment where you have to stand firm. That's the moment where you have to decide, do I believe in what I see, or do I believe in what God has promised? And when you hold on, when you refuse to quit, when you stand in faith, even when the storm is raging, you will see what happens when God moves suddenly. Unexpected favor will come, doors will open, miracles will happen. People will start asking you, how did that happen? And you'll be able to say, only God could have done this. Because when it's all said and done, when the dust settles, you will look back and realize that every delay, every closed door, every setback was all part of His plan. That every struggle was shaping you, preparing you for something greater. That what you thought was working against you was actually working for you. So let me ask you again, are you paying attention? Because when God moves suddenly, there's no time to second guess. There's no time to stay stuck in fear, in old patterns, in past mistakes. When He moves, you move. When He calls, you answer. When He opens the door, you walk through it without hesitation. Because what's on the other side of this shift, it's bigger than you think. It's greater than you imagined. And when you step into it, you'll know without a doubt that it was never by your power, it was always by His. Let me tell you something. When God moves, He moves suddenly, not on your schedule, not when it makes sense to you, not when it's convenient. He moves in His perfect time, and when He does, everything shifts in an instant. One day you're praying, waiting, wondering if He hears you. The next, doors you never thought would open swing wide. Problems that seemed impossible suddenly have solutions. Battles you thought would never end are won before you even lift a finger. That's the power of God's sudden movement. And when it happens, you have to be ready. The problem is, too many of us get caught up in our own plans, our own timelines, our own expectations of how things should happen. We think we know the way, but God sees what we can't. We pray for change, but when it comes in a way we didn't expect, we hesitate. We hold on to what's familiar because stepping into the unknown feels risky. But let me tell you something. When God moves suddenly, you don't have time to hesitate. You don't have time to sit in fear. You either step forward in faith or you miss what He's trying to do. When God moves, He moves with purpose. He's not just shifting your situation. He's shifting you. He's breaking old habits, tearing down strongholds, removing distractions, and setting you up for something bigger than you ever imagined. But here's what you need to know. Before the shift, there's always a shaking. Things might start falling apart. People you thought would be in your life forever start walking away. Plans you thought were solid start unraveling. And it's easy to panic in that moment. It's easy to think something's going wrong, but let me tell you, it's not falling apart. It's falling into place. God is removing what no longer serves you. He's making room for something better. Some of you are in that shaking season right now. You're looking at your life and wondering why things feel unstable. You're wondering why relationships are ending, why doors are closing, why everything feels uncertain. But let me remind you, God does not remove anything without a purpose. If he's taking something away, it's because he has something greater in store. And when he moves suddenly, he will bring the right people, the right opportunities, and the right blessings at exactly the right time. But you have to trust him. Because when God moves, not everyone will understand. Some people around you won't see what he's doing in your life. They'll question it. They'll doubt you. They'll try to keep you in the same place because they don't have the vision to see where God is taking you. And if you listen to them, if you let their fear become your fear, you will stay stuck. But when God moves, he's calling you higher. He's pulling you into a new season, and you have to be willing to go, even if it means leaving some people behind. And let me tell you something, before every breakthrough, there is resistance. The enemy does not attack what is not a threat. If you feel like you are under attack, if it feels like everything is pushing against you, that is not a sign to quit. That is a sign that you are close. The closer you get to the breakthrough, the harder the battle feels. But don't you dare give up. Don't you dare let go. Because when God moves, the struggle you are facing right now will turn into the testimony that blesses someone else. And in the middle of that battle, in the middle of the uncertainty, you will feel something unexpected. Peace. A peace that doesn't even make sense. A peace that says, I don't know how this will work out, but I know God is in control. That peace is not a coincidence. That peace is proof that God is already working. That peace is the sign that you are exactly where you need to be. And when you least expect it, everything will shift. Suddenly you'll wake up and realize that the weight you've been carrying is gone. Suddenly you'll see doors open that you never knocked on. Suddenly you'll find yourself in places you never thought you'd be, surrounded by opportunities you never even prayed for. Because when God moves, he doesn't just meet expectations, he exceeds them. He doesn't just answer prayers, he does more than you ever imagined. But here's the thing, you have to be ready. You can't afford to miss it because you were too focused on the past. You can't afford to hesitate when he calls you forward. When God moves, you move. When he says go, you go. When he opens the door, you don't second guess it, you walk through it with confidence, because what's waiting on the other side of this shift? It's bigger than you think. It's greater than you imagined. And when you step into it, you'll look back and realize that everything, every delay, every disappointment, every struggle was leading you here. It was all part of his plan. And when people ask you how it happened, how you overcame, how you made it through, you'll be able to say with confidence, only God could have done this. When God moves, he doesn't take small steps. He shifts everything. One moment you feel stuck, weighed down by the same struggles, the same unanswered prayers, the same cycles that seem impossible to break. Then suddenly, everything changes. That's how God works. He moves in ways we don't always see coming. And when he does, you have to be ready. Because when God moves, he moves suddenly. He moves suddenly. Too many of us sit around waiting for the perfect moment, waiting until we feel ready, waiting for a sign that makes sense to us. But God doesn't operate on human timing. He doesn't wait for you to have it all figured out. He doesn't need your approval before he shifts your life. He moves when the time is right. And when he does, you have to trust him enough to step forward, even when you don't have all the answers. And let me tell you something. When God moves, He will start rearranging things in your life. People who once had a front row seat will suddenly start to fade away. Plans you were so sure of will fall apart. Opportunities you thought were yours will close right in front of you. And it's easy to think that something is wrong, that maybe you missed a step, that maybe you're being punished. But hear me, when God moves, He removes. He clears the path, not to punish you, but to protect you. He takes away what no longer serves your purpose so that you can step fully into what He has prepared for you. Some of you are in that season right now. You feel like things are slipping away. You feel like doors are closing, relationships are changing, and nothing is going according to plan. But what if I told you that's the very proof that God is working? What if I told you that the discomfort you're feeling is a sign that He's shifting things for your good? When God moves, it won't always feel comfortable, but it will always be right. But here's the thing. You have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to stop clinging to what is familiar when God is trying to bring you into something greater. Too many people miss their blessing because they refuse to release what is no longer meant for them. They hold on to old habits, old relationships, old ways of thinking, not realizing that God is calling them higher. And let me tell you, when God moves, resistance will come, because the enemy does not want you to step into your purpose. The closer you get to the breakthrough, the harder the battle will feel. You'll start doubting yourself, questioning your faith, wondering if you heard God right. You'll face obstacles that make you think about turning back. But listen to me. Don't you dare give up now. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you so hard if there wasn't something powerful on the other side of this. The battle is proof that something big is coming. And in the middle of all of that, something supernatural will happen. You will feel peace. A deep, unshakable peace. A peace that makes no sense. A peace that tells you, I may not see the whole picture, but I know God is in control. That peace is your confirmation. That peace is God whispering, keep going, I've got this. And when God moves suddenly, everything that was holding you back will begin to break. Chains of fear, doubt, insecurity, and past failures will fall away. The things that once had power over you will lose their grip. You will wake up one day and realize that you are no longer the same person. The thoughts that once drained you won't even cross your mind. The burdens you carried for years will suddenly feel lighter. Because when God moves, He doesn't just shift your situation, He transforms you. And when that transformation happens, everything around you will start aligning. The right people will enter your life at the right time. Opportunities you never expected will appear out of nowhere. The prayers you thought were unheard will be answered in ways you never imagined. And when it happens, you'll know without a doubt that only God could have done it. But you have to be ready. Because when God moves, there's no time to hesitate. There's no time to second guess. You can't afford to stay stuck in fear, stuck in overthinking, stuck in what's comfortable. When He calls you forward, you have to move. When He opens the door, you have to walk through it. Because what's on the other side is bigger than you think. It's greater than you imagined. And when you step into it, when you finally see what God was doing all along, you will look back and realize that every struggle, every delay, every setback was preparing you for this moment. You will see His fingerprints on every detail. And when people ask you how you got there, how you made it through, how you overcame, you will smile and say, only God could have done this. When God moves, He moves with power. He doesn't need a warning. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't check if it fits into your schedule or if you're comfortable with the timing. He moves in His perfect way, at His perfect time. And when He does, everything shifts. Suddenly, the situation you thought would never change turns around in an instant. The breakthrough you've been waiting for arrives when you least expect it. The door that seemed permanently shut bursts open without you even knocking. That's what happens when God moves suddenly. But here's the question. Are you ready? Are you in position to receive what he's bringing? Because too many people pray for change, but aren't prepared for it. Too many people ask for an open door, but hesitate when it swings wide. They overthink, they doubt, they question, and before they know it, the opportunity is gone. Let me tell you something. When God moves, hesitation will cost you. Fear will cost you. You can't afford to stay stuck in your comfort zone when God is calling you higher. And let me be real with you. When God moves, not everyone is meant to come with you. Some people were only assigned to a certain season of your life. They were there to teach you, to challenge you, to shape you, but they were never meant to stay forever. And that's where so many people struggle. They try to hold on to relationships, friendships, and environments that God is trying to remove. But listen, when God closes a door, don't waste your energy trying to reopen it. If he's removing something, trust that it's for your good. Some of you are in that moment right now. You feel things shifting. You feel relationships changing. You feel uncomfortable because what once felt familiar now feels foreign. That's God moving. That's him pulling you out of what was and into what's next. And you have to trust him. You have to let go of what no longer serves you so that you can step into what he has prepared for you. But understand this. When God moves, opposition will rise because the enemy does not want you to step into your destiny. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the louder the distractions will become. People will doubt you. You'll face unexpected challenges. Doors that seemed open will suddenly look like they're closing. But listen to me. Don't let the storm fool you. Don't let the resistance make you think you're on the wrong path. The battle before the blessing is always the hardest. But if you stay firm, if you refuse to quit, you will see what happens when God moves suddenly. And when it happens, something powerful will take place. You will experience a peace that cannot be explained, a peace that makes no sense, a peace that allows you to stand strong even when everything around you is shifting. That peace is the confirmation that God is in control. That peace is the proof that he is working. And when you feel it, hold on to it, because that peace is leading you exactly where you need to go. And then out of nowhere, everything will start to align. The right people will come into your life at the right time. Opportunities you never expected will find you. Things you struggled with for years will suddenly be resolved. And you will know, without a doubt, that it was God. Because when he moves, he leaves no room for coincidence. When he moves, it is undeniable. But here's the key. You have to be willing to move with him. When he calls you forward, don't hesitate. When he tells you to step out in faith, don't shrink back in fear. Because what he has for you is greater than what you're leaving behind. And when you step into it, when you finally see the fullness of what he's been preparing for you, you will understand why things had to happen the way they did to happen the way they did. So don't fight the process. Don't resist the shift. Don't try to hold on to what God is asking you to release. Because when you finally let go, when you finally surrender, you will see what happens when God moves suddenly. Everything changes. Everything aligns. And when you look back, you will say, only God could have done this.